In this video, we are going to discuss the pros and cons of buying versus leasing, as well as the main criteria that you should consider when making this decision for yourself. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm Jonny Walker. I'm a successful endodontist with multiple practices, as well as a self-made multimillionaire in real estate investing. Over the last 4 years, Walk of Wealth, which is a capital firm I founded, has invested in over 650 apartment units valued over $90 million worth of real estate. On this channel, we teach dentists and high net worth professionals on how they too can invest passively in real estate to create passive cash flows, as well as build immeasurable wealth. Now, before we get started, I'm very excited to share yet another resource that we've come up with. A lot of people are interested in investing passively in real estate and syndications, and so I've created a sponsored due diligence checklist, which is available for free download on my website. Check out the description below. All right, let's get started. We actually had a pretty lively discussion about this on our Facebook group, which was a dentist investing in real estate group. And people felt very strongly about their position, whether it was buying or leasing. Some of the main points that I gathered for the affirmative of buying is, one, it's a good investment and it's a good potential source of a nest egg in the future. You have fixed payments in terms of mortgage payments, especially if it's amortized over a long period of time. You have ownership. So you have true full control and you don't have to ask for permission to make any structural alterations or expansion of the physical building itself. And the fifth was the tax advantages, the many tax advantages associated with real estate ownership. All right. Number one, always invest for cash flow. Cash flow is king, especially for businesses, including your dental office. So the way to look at it is, by owning this real estate, what will it do for your bottom line? Will it increase or decrease your cost basis versus leasing? For example, if you know that the lease for your dental practice is $3,000 a month, but you know that your cost, and you come across the opportunity to buy the real estate, but once you do the math, you realize that by buying the real estate, your mortgage payment will actually work out to about $4,000 a month for your dental practice, then that creates a negative $1,000 cash flow for every month that you are in practice. So number one is always invest for cash flow. So if it decreases your cash flow position by ownership versus leasing, then it may be more wise to consider leasing. Number two, are you a dentist operator, owner, or a real estate investor? This is critical to understand. For example, if you have an ideal location for a business, tons of parking, it's highly visible, there's lots of traffic going each way, easy to get in and egress for cars to come into your plaza, go to the dental office and leave without causing all kinds of traffic. Say you find an ideal location where there's no other dentists in a 5-mile radius and you have a lock on the market. But that location is in a very large strip mall and is only available by lease. Property B, on the other hand, is not on the main street. It's a couple of blocks off the beaten path. Not as good parking, not as good visibility, not as good signage. Parking is a little cramped, so the practice might not be as profitable as a well-located practice. But the dentist says, hey, I'm only looking for dental practices where the real estate is also available for purchase. So by doing that and only having an exclusionary mindset where I'm only looking for ones where real estate investable, you may miss out on a golden opportunity for a multi-million-dollar generating practice, all in the namesake of getting a real estate investment that is not going to spit off the type of returns that a dental practice can. So what you have to decide is, are you a dentist operator or a real estate investor? Because oftentimes these have conflicting or incongruent goals. Think about some of the biggest generating dental offices out there. 90% of them do not own the location of their practice. They're completely lessees. I had the fortune of interviewing Aspen Dental's founder and CEO, and I asked him that very question. Why wouldn't you buy the real estate around all your dental locations? I mean, you have over 1,000 locations. Imagine you own 1,000 pieces of real estate. And he told me very clearly at that time, we're in the dental business. We're not in the business of real estate. So they understand that the dental practice is going to generate much higher rates of profit if you're in an ideal location versus a secondary location that the real estate may be available. If you come across a rare circumstance where the dental practice is an ideally located practice and the real estate is available, then you may consider buying, but always still have to consider cash flow as well as some of the other intangibles that I'm about to discuss. Number 3, another instance where I would consider buying versus leasing is if you know that an existing structure isn't going to be up to par for what you have envisioned. You may be considering tearing it down and building a brand new location, or you may be considering extending or expanding an existing building structure. In this scenario, buying may be better than leasing. The next thing to consider is property type. Dental offices are located in a wide varying types of real estate properties. Some of the more common ones are to be located in an office park, retail or strip malls, which have become very popular over the last 10 years, mixed use buildings, lone standing buildings, as well as mobile dentistry. People buy mobile RVs, the recreation vehicles, and convert them into dental offices. So these are all different types of real estate associated with dental practice. Now, just to kind of comment on each type, the office park or the office condo, these are often great locations because you have synergies of other doctors and other professionals within the office park or office condominium. Cons are that there's very low room for appreciation. So if your goal is to create wealth or to create a very significant nest egg, an office condo or an office park may not be the best. The standalone building, for example, this is like often you sometimes you see a single family house converted to a dental office, or you might even just see a freestanding building that's a dental office. These tend to be higher risk in my opinion. You know, it depends completely on you. You're betting on yourself, which is not always a bad thing. However, what happens is you don't have the economies of scale of sharing that mortgage responsibility amongst other tenants, which you can do in a multi-tenant type of property. The other thing about standalone buildings is that they are on the exit strategy, they can be challenging because when you're looking to sell, now you're looking to sell to a dentist that also has to buy the real estate. This greatly decreases the pool of buyers for dental practice, especially if they are forced into buying real estate also. So that's also one thing to consider. If you can get a dental practice in a large strip mall or in a mixed use building with a multifamily structure above it, this may be a beautiful opportunity for you. But again, you have to consider the location, the market, the sub-market, as to whether this is going to be a good long-term investment. The other problem with retail strip malls and apartment buildings is oftentimes they're very large retail centers, 20,000 square feet, 50,000 square feet, or 20, 30, 50, 100 unit apartment buildings are often beyond the scope of an individual dentist investor. So oftentimes you're priced out with these type of properties, even though this might be a great type of property to actually buy or invest in. So what are the cons of owning your own real estate? We kind of just alluded to some of them. You have to now change the focus from a dentist operator to also wearing yet another hat of being a landlord. Anytime you add another layer of responsibility to your business, it creates one more thing that you have to consider, manage, and give mental headspace to, depending on how many tenants you have, the management intensity, and if you do get third-party management, you have to also be a good asset manager because you can't just give it to a property manager and let them run with it. You have to manage managers, which is very important in real estate investing. Often some of the biggest, highest performing dentists are ones that are locked in on their practice, right? They're focused solely on making their practice become more efficient, become more productive, generate more revenues. So they have the ability to lock in and focus on one thing. Now, all of a sudden, if you introduce being a landlord, on top of being a dentist, it can distract or detract your telescopic focus on production. Now you have to divert some of your energy, mental space, thoughts, intentioned energy towards being a landlord. And this can have a detrimental effect on the growth of your dental practice. Second, liability. Your liability goes way up when you're owning real estate versus leasing it, right? I'm not talking about just liability of general liability of anything happening on your property where you can get sued or named in lawsuits, etc., but also financial liability. Now you're buying a property, you're taking on mortgages. In this scenario, you've greatly increased your risk profile by taking on more loans and more financial liability by ownership. And third is the illiquidity. We kind of discussed this already. If you have to get up and move your practice, maybe the area is declining, maybe the building is falling apart, right? When you're a lessee, especially if you have terms built into your lease, you can easily relocate to another location much easier. Whereas if you own the building, it's much more liquid. It's much harder to sell and move this property, and might take a longer time before you can actually move on from this property. A lot of people don't consider the end. They only consider when they're buying and what's going to happen during the investment. But afterwards, when you're ready to exit, this could become material consequence. All right, so now let's discuss leasing a little bit. Now, we talked about having the advantages of having fixed payments when you're buying a property, but your payments are only fixed in terms of the mortgage, right? Property taxes and property insurance will continue to increase. So your expenses aren't really fixed, right? Your mortgage payment might be, but those expenses go up. These expenses increasing, right, due to inflation and due to market pressures is also the reason why leases are also increasing. So landlords can stay caught up with inflation. These are the rent increases are built into the lease. Now, people might say, well, your lease is increasing, your mortgage payment isn't. I mean, proportionately, yeah, both are actually increasing. But let's take lease, for example. Now, if your business is growing to at least keep up with inflation, not talking about in recent years where we have double-digit inflation, I'm talking about regular years inflation, where you get 1 to 2 to 3% a year. If your business is growing and keeping up with inflation 1 to 3% per year, then your proportionate ability to pay for a lease that's also increasing by 2 or 3% becomes not that burdensome. Now, when it comes down to leasing, this is the most critical thing, and I really want to drive this home to you, to anybody that's considering leasing, is the terms of the lease are the most important thing that there is. Let me say that again. The terms of the lease is the most important thing to consider when you're doing leasing. Okay? Now, what you have to remember is that when you are the lessee, when you are the dentist looking for a place to put your dental business, you have to remember that you are a gold mine for a landlord. You are a huge asset for a landlord. A landlord, no matter how nonchalant they ask and say, oh, we have a lot of other tenants that could go into this. Believe me, I've been on the lessor and the lessee. I've been the landlord and the tenant. And let me tell you, dentists' offices are highly coveted. Why? They have low default rates. They're professional tenants that are going to take care of the property. They're only work during working hours, right? They're not always there running lights, running energy. And most likely, if the dental office is a successful business, they will be there for a very long time. So landlords love dentists. So use that to your advantage when you negotiate terms. And remember, every single term in your lease is negotiable. And every single line in that lease should be scrutinized and gone over with a fine-tooth comb to tilt the tables as much as you can in your favor as a dental office. Some of the things that you can negotiate that a lot of people don't know about. For example, blackout clause. If you are in a busy strip mall, but slowly the strip mall starts to turn and business after business goes dark. Now only 50% of the units are full in this plaza. Now as a dentist office, you are depending on all the traffic that's going to all these other businesses to drive business in your dental office. Now all of a sudden your office isn't as productive or busy anymore because half the tenants in the strip mall are gone. By having a blackout clause, you can say, hey, if 50% or more of the tenants leave, we have the right to exit the lease. Right? That's called a blackout clause. Kickout clause. During the first 5 years that we're in this practice, we have the right to leave after giving a 6-month notice. That's called the kickout clause. If the business we consider the business not viable, it's not a good location, we have the right to close. Right? So you can get out of a big option. Like that, there's many other clauses and phrases and things that you can do to strengthen the lease from the lessee side. Make sure that you have in place is the ability to lease the space and control that space for many, many years. The way you do that is by having options at the end of your lease. So for example, if you have a 5-year lease and your practice is booming, you don't want your lease to come up and then the landlord says, oh, you got to move out, or we're going to jack up the rent because I know you're doing really well. But now if you've negotiated this beforehand, you can say, all right, if we decide to exercise the lease option at the end of 5 years, this is what the payments, this is what the terms will be. At the end of year 10, we get an option for another additional 5 years from year 11 to 15, and the rent will be XYZ. We also have the right to negotiate the lease at the option time period. Now, if rents haven't gone up that much and you're overpaying, you can always go back and say, hey, look, we want to renegotiate the lease terms because now we're overpaying. Or you have the other option where lease rents have gone way up, but you're locked in at the lease that's been specified from the very beginning. And as a result, you're on the favorable side of being able to pay below market rents. So that greatly puts the favor on the tenant by having lease options that the tenant can now control the property for many, many years, or they can choose to leave at the end of the term. Remember, the strength of the lease is the strength of your entire stay there. Because if you have a triple net lease and you have the place tied up for 20 years, you have exclusive rights to that space. Right? The landlord really has no recourse unless you're doing something that violates the lease or the terms of the lease. The landlord has very little control over the inside of that space. So that's something to consider in terms of, yeah, I actually kind of do own this space. I don't own it. I have the second best thing. I don't even own it. I control this space without owning it. That's the strength of the lease. And finally, the final piece is that it's a good investment or a nest egg. Now, we kind of discussed this already. If you buy a building, for example, for $800,000, you put $200,000 down as a down payment. You own and practice in this location for 20 years. You do very well as a dentist. At the end of 20 years, this $800,000 building is now worth $1.6 million and it's paid off. That dentist has created a $1.6 million nest egg. How can you go wrong here? The answer is opportunity cost. It's not just about how much money you invest. It's about how much money you invest and how hard will that money work for you to generate the biggest returns possible on a risk-adjusted basis. Now, if we're looking at opportunity cost and say, for example, a savvy guy were to take this $200,000 and instead of buying the building, they decide to lease, and they take that $200,000 that they could have used as a down payment to buy the building, and instead they use it to make another investment, such as a multifamily real estate syndication. In multifamily syndications and a lot of other syndications, it's not that unfathomable for you to be able to double your money every 4 to 6 years. Let's say every 5 years. This dentist practiced for 20 years and continually invested this $200,000. Whenever he got return of principal and profit, he reinvested that money, so it compounded. A $200,000 investment would double after 5 years to become $400,000, would double again after 8 years to become $800,000, double again, become 1.6, double again, and after 20 years, you have that $200,000 is now $3.2 million. That's double what the building was worth at $1.6 million. So yes, it was a nice nest egg to get that $1.6 million, but it would have been an even nicer nest egg to get that $3.2 million. So what you have to consider is not just, is it a good investment, but is it a good investment relative to other similar investments in terms of risk? That's what you have to consider. So based on that, with all things considered, in generally speaking, I would always recommend leasing versus buying your dental practice. Obviously, there are examples and there's no hard and fast set rules, and it would be foolish to say so because there are clear examples of when you should buy your practice versus leasing. But when you consider it as a whole, the advantages of leasing far exceed buying. All right, guys, so that's my 2 cents on the video. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you got a ton of value. I hope you gave thoughts and points to consider. Let's continue this conversation in the comments below. I'm sure there's people that disagree with me, and I'm more than happy to openly debate and discuss ideas, because by discussing ideas in open forum is a great way for everyone collectively to learn and get better. Click on the next video for more wealth building topics. I'm unlocking all the secrets that the wealthy people use, and I'm gonna put it right here on the Walk of Wealth. All right, guys, let's go.